Welcome to Product Success Management Issues, the podcast and video series that explores in depth with experienced product managers and product marketing managers the key issues that affect product success. Sponsored by Wiley and my company, Spice Catalyst, I am Dave Fradin, your host and the author of Foundations in the Successful Management of Products series of books and courses published by Wiley. Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. Be sure to connect with my guest also. Welcome, Mike Locy. You're the Director of Product Management at Viasat down in the San Diego area?
That is correct, yeah.
And what does Viasat do?
So we're a satellite communications company. So we do things from putting satellite on airplanes, putting satellite in businesses, putting satellite internet on residential areas. So I work in a group that does the B2B satellite internet for businesses. So we might have big customers like QSR, like a fast food restaurant that might have a location that is out in the middle of nowhere and they want to get satellite internet. So we help fill gaps. We also help provide internet to customers who look for redundancy. So even if you have in an area where you might be able to have a gig of internet speed, what happens when the truck comes by and digs up that trench and you now can't take payments anymore. So we do a lot of backup internet as well.
Gotcha. You have recently become Director of Product Management?
At this company, yeah. So this is my first time in the telecommunications industry. I spent like the previous 20 years doing various product management, marketing, and engineering jobs in the semiconductor industry. So took a foray to come down here. I always wanted to try to get back to San Diego. So it's the way to do that.
So as director, how many product managers do you have reporting to you?
In this organization, I have three kind of senior product managers, and I have kind of a product engineer as well.
Mm-hmm. And what do those senior product managers do?
Well, the way I've divided up the team here is based on essentially three different portfolios that we have. So I've got one person who's responsible for the kind of core connectivity elements, the different internet service plans that we're creating, and the hardware that goes around supporting those internet service plans. I've got another product manager who's responsible for doing the managed services on top of that. So we might be selling VoIP, we might be selling hotspots, presence analytics, so we have a whole roadmap for that. And then I have another product manager who's responsible for the back office roadmap. So how are we taking orders? How are we doing fulfillment? How are we communicating to our customers?
Gotcha. So they're organized around product and functions.
Correct.
Gotcha. And then who do you report up to?
So I report to the general manager of our Global Business Solutions group.
I noticed in your LinkedIn profile that you've had general management experience, and prior to that, you were also in business development.
Correct.
How do you compare and contrast your role as a director of product management versus those two roles?
Well, the general manager role I had was when I first came down to Viasat. They were looking to set up a whole business doing community Wi-Fi to places in the U.S. So in that perspective, I was responsible for, the whole thing. How are we going to market it? How are we going to, not just the product side of things, what was the operation going to look like? What was the P&L going to be for that? So it was probably a deeper responsibility, but not quite as broad, because we were just trying to get a few pieces set up for tests. The business development role is very different from a product management role, because the business development role was typically taking things that somewhat already existed throughout the organization, identifying customers who had needs and seeing what pieces we could bring together to solve that customer need. And I also had, I think the business development role you're looking at, it was very specific. I was responsible for purchasing used semiconductor equipment for Hewlett-Packard. So Hewlett-Packard, multi-billion-dollar semiconductor equipment company. We had a certified equipment arm that I worked in, and so part of my responsibility there was actually going and working with our customers and with banks negotiate for purchase of equipment and equipment repurchase programs with them that we would then bring into our refurbishment center and then resell as fully certified by the OEM.
And how is the product management role different from that?
Well, when I think of product management, I put it under 4 questions that we have to ask. Okay, so the product managers, when I'm teaching product managers and I'm building product management training, I basically say there's 4 things you got to do. Number 1, what's the customer problem statement? So it's really incumbent on the product manager to understand from their customer's perspective, what problems are they trying to solve? Number 2, what is our unique and differentiated solution that we're going to bring to that customer? So it's not enough to solve the problem. We have to solve the problem in a different and better way than what the customer's alternatives are. Number 3, how are we going to make money? So what is our business model going to be? What's our profitability? Are we going to be doing licensing? Are we going to be doing one-time purchasing? And then the other part, which I really try to stress with my team, is like, what's the plan? How are we going to take this idea and bring it to the market? So the product manager is really responsible for the success of the product. And in many ways, I consider product management kind of a mini GM type role. They may not have as many people reporting to them as a general manager might have. They might not officially have all those functions, but they have to be able to influence those various different functions to be able to release that product to market.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you mentioned the word success, that they're responsible for product success. And I've started a worldwide campaign to change the title from product manager to product success manager. And the reason for that is when I go to a cocktail party and meet a nice-looking lady, and she says, "What do I do?" I say, "I'm a product manager." She says, "What's that?" And then I start describing the 32 things I do as a product manager and some of the 130 competencies that I have to have. And usually before I get through the second sentence, she turns and walks away.
Yeah.
So I put together a humorous memo on my website, spicecatalyst.com. It's a memo you can take and send to your boss and say, "I want to change my title to product success manager." And then if I meet someone and get married, I'll invite you to the wedding.
Okay. Yeah, what's interesting about product management is, again, I've seen it. I've worked in 3 different companies in product management type roles, and the term product manager is very nebulous term, and it means something different for every different company. So if the idea, certainly the idea is, how do we launch successful products? We went to this whole offsite in my previous company, where the goal of the offsite was what is the mission statement of us as a product management team? And after an all-day extensive look, we basically came up with a 3-word phrase, which was create winning products. And that was our goal. Use the word success. Success is winning. Then you can spend a lot of time defining what does winning mean, what does success mean. But at the end of the day, it's funny, at my last company, because we were much more B2B focused, and we had, I would say something like 80% of our business was probably at 14 customers, where we were serving Intel, TSMC, Samsung. There was so much direct interaction that there wasn't a huge marketing function where there was people who were really focused on doing advertising and doing ad space and things like that. So my product managers at that, and I ran a team of about 11 product managers at that time, they were really focused on, they were called product marketing managers. So they kind of had the PMM, the marketing aspect of things, and the product aspect of things. And I've noticed when I was looking for other types of roles outside of that industry, that if I use the word marketing, people here would be talking to me about how to run an ad campaign and how to do plans for ad campaigns and how to do search engine optimization and things like that I really had no desire to be involved in. And that's where the role of just strictly product management became clear to me, that in other industries, the person who's doing what a PMM would have done in that industry was primarily called a product manager in this role.
And you mentioned the 4th thing that your team does, which is also the marketing. So your product managers do what I would define as the product marketing management role also.
Yeah, and again, it comes down. It's like you said before. You go to a party and you say, "Well, what do you do?" And if you use the word marketing, people think you're doing, advertising. But what we've delineated between myself and the marketing person who sits across the hall from me there is my team's responsible for what do we want to say about this product? What elements of it that we consider to be differentiated do we want to highlight to customers? What types of customers we want to talk to, and then the marketing team helps polish how we want to say that, and what's the message, and what's the right way, and what colors do we want to use for our materials, things like that.
Great. And then when you're looking to hire a product manager, what characteristics are you looking for?
No, that's a good question, and because it depends on what I'm missing in my team, right? So what I've found success in, and again, this is I would say the higher end of the distribution, right? What I found success is looking for a person who's got a strong technical background, a strong financial background, and knows how to work within an organization to influence other people. And actually, what I found successful in hiring people, and I started doing this in my last company, is when I bring a product manager in, the first thing they're going to do is not sit down and across the table in an interview. I'm going to have them give a presentation. They're going to be expected to give a presentation. And I'm going to ask them, in your presentation, you to highlight for me things you've done in the past that show, number one, what was the customer problem statement? Number two, what was your unique and differentiated solution? And number three, how did you make money? Okay, and so I want them to highlight those skills for me. What I've found is the most successful are those who have a technical background, have some kind of financial and business background, and then number three, have the ability to communicate and influence other people. Those are very hard things. The technical background is pretty easy to piece out based on looking at somebody's resume. The business background, they may have had an MBA or kind of worked on an MBA. That kind of gives me some insight into their business, into their background. But again, how do you know how well somebody has been able to work in an influencing role without actually having direct reports? What I found, even myself, I have director of product management people working for me in my last job that had no direct reports because it's a position of authority and a position of influence, but it's not necessarily a position that has a lot of span of control from an actual direct report perspective.
Right. When this candidate comes in to do the presentation that you asked for, are they doing it ad hoc on the spot, or are you asking them to prepare a presentation?
I always ask them to prepare a presentation. So I will tell them. So generally, what I'll do is I'll have a series of, and one of my weaknesses is I'm pretty bad at being really critical of talent. So I always make sure I have a good team of people because I always feel like I can mold and make somebody be who I need them to be. But what my process is usually I'll have them go through a series of phone interviews with myself and others who I trust. And then once they've made it through that process, I will tell them, you're going to come in for this interview. When you come in, you will be prepared to do what I just described.
And does some come in with a PowerPoint presentation, or does some just talk off the top of their head? Or
they always come in with a PowerPoint presentation. I make it clear that that's my expectations are going to come in with a PowerPoint presentation. And some of them are able to hit the nail on the head and really describe for us and be able to answer what problem are they solving. You'd be able to go through the three of those four things I mentioned, and some of them, and with the presentation, have nothing to do with that, which shows they can't follow instructions and they don't ask back. So,
gotcha. Well, great. Thanks, Mike, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts and your views.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
On behalf of my guest and myself, thanks for joining us on Product Success Management Issues. I am Dave Fradin. Be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn.